So in the last video, we talked about the 1, 2, and 5 talents, and we kind of modernized it a bit, talking about the lower, middle, and upper socioeconomic groups. And I told you that what I wanted to do was talk about each of the groups and how they function and what might be some changes a person would make if they wanted to move from one group to the next. Now, just to be clear, I pretended that the parable had been rewritten, that instead of the one talent bearing his, the idea was the one talent actually doubled his, just like the other two. Therefore, he'd hear, or she'd hear, "Well done, good and faithful servant, enter now into your master's joy." And that's my goal. Is, you see, even though the one talent is just really working on learning how to manage income and expenses, that doesn't make them wrong. As a matter of fact, I can share some stories with you. One of the first ones that comes to mind for me is a couple named Louie and June. They were older, and I knew them years ago. They've gone home to be with the Lord. But you know what? They were the best one-talent Christians I've ever met. Don't misunderstand. They were good. They managed money well. They didn't have a lot of it. He had been a pastor most of his life. She had been a stay-at-home mom. They did a good job to manage what they had. It was tight. They lived in a tiny house. They made the most of it. They really probably didn't have a credit rating to speak of. If they did, it was pretty nominal because they rarely borrowed money. They paid cash for things. They were good stewards with what God had given them. Honestly, maybe in the latter part of their life, they might have even gotten to two-talent behavior because of how well they managed as one-talent Christians, as the lower socioeconomic group. You know, if you identify with that, you don't make a lot of money or you're struggling financially, the question is, would people give a great testimony about you? Would they talk about how well you managed what you had? Because that's the goal. As Christians, if we're going to be good stewards, then we're going to manage whatever it is God's given us, whether we are 1 talent, 2 talent, or 5 talent people in the resources we manage. My encouragement to you is to consider, how do you be the best 1 talent you can be, if that's where you are? Now in the next video, we're going to talk about some 2 talent behavior, what they do differently. Because my goal is to help each person be the best they can be, and then to consider how they might move from the group they're in to the next group, if that's possible, if that's in God's will, and if it's with their abilities. So as we close today, the question really is simply this. If you are that lower socioeconomic group, that 1 talent person, are you the best steward of that you can be? And then the companion question will be, what do you have to do to move from that group to the next group?